Hey guys, Carl from Purple Moose Plays. Today I'm taking a look at Ink from designer Kasper Lapp and publisher Final Score Games. This is a sort of spatial puzzler tile laying race game in which you're slowly laying out tiles into your own personal tableau, sort of growing different areas of color, hoping then to place out your ink bottles onto that tableau, ultimately winning the game if you are the first person to place out all of your ink bottles onto your tableau. Disclaimer, I was given a review copy of this game for this video, but as always, I will do my best to give you my own honest opinion on the game. With that said, let's head down to the table to see how the solo mode in this one plays, and then I'll meet you back up here to let you know what I think. To set up a solo game of Ink, begin by placing the quill wheel out on the table. Next, in the ink bag, I've already placed all of the tiles. I'm going to draw one tile to place at each of these 6 locations around the quill wheel. Next, I'm going to take the X tokens and double X tokens, separating them into 2 separate piles. All of these single X tokens will be placed face down and shuffled up, which I'll do in just a minute, and all of these double X tiles will be placed into this X bag like this. Next, from those single X tokens, we're going to mix those all up, and one of them will be placed at random up here at the starting space on the quill wheel. The remaining tiles will be used to set up the AI's sort of area on the board. The number of these tiles that will be used is going to be determined by the difficulty level being played. For this playthrough, I will play at the easiest difficulty level, which means I will use all 14 of these tiles. So I'm going to organize these 14 tiles into 2 rows of 7 tiles at the top of the screen. And then I'm going to be placing these black ink bottles next to each of these tiles, starting with the ink bottle face up, face down, and alternating like that for the remaining tiles, placing the final ink bottle over here on this X space on the quill wheel. Next, I'm going to place out this bonus action display down here in the bottom corner, and then to fill that in, I'm going to be placing in 4 random bonus actions. And to do that, I'm going to first be removing bonus action 9 and 12 for the solo mode, putting those back into the box. And then I will separate the other 2 into red and blue, or sorry, the other tiles into red and blue, giving them a shuffle, and then choosing 2 of each of these at random to make up our 4 bonus actions for this game. So from the red stack, I am taking this one, number 10, and this one here, number 2. And from the blue stack, I will be using number 4 and number 3. And then these will be placed in order in this board. So we're going to start with number 2, number 3, number 4, and number 10. And looking at the 4 options, or the 4 bonus actions that we've selected or that we've randomly chosen for this game, we're going to need, for this second action here, it says place 1 colored square. For this game, I will be using then the colored square tiles that look like this. So I'm just going to be putting those in stacks over next to the bonus action tile. Finally, to finish setup for my personal player area, I'm going to take one of these palette cards randomly. So for this playthrough, I will be playing with red and purple. Stick that right there. And then I'm going to choose a color of ink bottle, which you can probably guess is going to be purple. And from this stack of purple bottles, I will be placing one of them on that starting space of the circle. And then as printed here on this card, I will be placing 12 of these bottles onto this card here, and then the remaining 12 bottles will be placed down here below the card. And then finally, to finish setup, we are going to take one of these starting tiles at random, giving that a shuffle. And I will be starting with this tile right here, and I'll just stick that in the middle of sort of my tableau area. And with that, we are all set up for gameplay. So a solo game of Ink is going to play out over a series of up to 14 rounds in the case of this beginner level. The other difficulty levels would be Novice at 13, Confirmed at 12, Expert at 11, and Master at 10. I'll talk more about the difficulty levels later, but again, because I'm playing beginner, this will play out over a series of 14 rounds, and I am trying to place out all of my bottles into my tableau before the end of the 14th round. The AI will always be taking their turn first, followed by myself, and I call it an AI, but it's not scoring or competing against us in any kind of way. It's just sort of there pushing me as a timer, but then also getting in my way for the different actions that I need to do. And as I sort of teach how this game plays, the AI will always be taking its turn before mine, and I think it'll make a little bit more sense for you to see how everything works as I'm playing rather than me trying to sort of just tell you all of the rules ahead of time. So I am going to start by taking an AI turn, and then I will explain the sort of main core rules, core mechanisms of the game as I take my first turn. So on the AI's turn, they're simply going to flip over the next face down token. So we're going to finish this first row and then do the second row. And that color is going to give them sort of a focus or a goal of tile that they're focused on this wheel. And then they're going to check the sort of orientation of the bottle. If the cap is face up, as this one is here, they're going to be trying to place that on an empty spot on one of these tiles. Likewise, if the cap is face down, as this second one is, they would then be trying to place that out on an objective location, means one of these ones with a numbered value on it. So in this case, they are looking for this sort of cream color, and they're looking to place on an empty spot. So starting where they are, moving clockwise around the wheel, they're going to find the first space that matches that condition. In the case that there is no condition, they're going to move to the next space clockwise, simply removing that tile, removing that ink bottle, and replacing it with a new tile. But in this case, there is a matching tile. They will move here, and they will place that on this cream spot right there. So that's all the AI does on their turn. Now it is my turn. On my turn, I'm going to move my ink bottle on this wheel to a location around the wheel, drafting that tile and adding it to my tableau. And when adding a tile to my tableau, there is no required need for me to connect the matching color to a matching color. I just need to make sure that sort of one edge of one color is touching my board, which means it could be touching completely flat like that, but it could also be staggered like that. They can also be rotated in any orientation that I'd like, but it can never be placed sort of diagonal or sort of midway on a side or so on. It has to match perfectly, either flush to a tile or sort of half like this, matching color to color. And again, the colors don't need to match, but they will want to be matched. And the reason is, after placing a tile into my tableau, I'm going to look at all of the different colored areas. And if there is a colored area of a size equal to or greater than one of these objective values, so for example, if this blue 4 was touching an area of at least 4 blue spaces, I would place bottles from my supply into that objective value and any empty spots that are included in that matching color area that I'm scoring. And when doing that, these 12 bottles from my palette card can only be placed if that color being scored is one of the 2 colors shown on the palette card. So I can only place these 12 bottles on red or purple areas, whereas these bottom 12 bottles are my joker bottles. I can place them in any location as needed. And again, my goal is to get rid of all of these bottles before the end of the 14th turn. After taking that tile and adding it to my tableau and checking for any scoring, I will then replace that tile on the board. When I do successfully score, assuming that the size of the area being scored is 4, 5, 6, or 7, means not including these 3 valued spaces, I will trigger the bonus action associated with that number value. And these bonus actions are always going to be optional, but they will sort of help me more efficiently get things done as needed. When I trigger a 4, I can change the number of an objective. And saying that now, I realize I forgot one more component that I hadn't played with before, so I didn't recognize it. There are these numbered values that I can physically place on the board as activation of that bonus ability. So now those tokens are there as needed for when I trigger that 4 bonus action. The 5 bonus action says I get to place one colored square of my choice. It means I can place any one of these colored tiles here onto my board, effectively changing the color of one square. And that can cover an empty spot or an empty objective if I decide that that's a smart idea for me to do. The 6 value bonus action for this game says I can move one tile from the edge of my painting. When I'm moving a tile, I have to connect it the same way that I would have before. So I can't like leave it in the middle of an empty space. I can't connect diagonally and so on. It also means later on you'll see I'm going to be overlaying these X tokens. I cannot move a tile that has an X token halfway on it because then it would sort of be hanging over the edge and not on a tile. But you'll see how that works later on. Finally, the 7 value bonus action is going to allow me to remove up to 2 ink bottles from 2 different colored areas in my tableau. And in this case, remove means remove from the game. They do not return to my supply. They are simply removed from the game, meaning those spots would then become available to be used again on a future turn. So again, on my turn, I will move my bottle to a location, take a tile, place it into my tableau, check for scoring, place bottles if necessary, and then if I trigger a 4, 5, 6, or 7 valued objective, I have the option to use the associated bonus action, after which I replace the tile. In addition, you'll see this top location has an X on it. Anytime I land on that location, I'm going to need to place an X tile in my tableau. The first X tile that we place there during setup is going to be a single X like this. And a single X needs to be placed on to a location in my board covering 2 sort of spaces, at least one of which matches the color of that single X. Every time after I pass that first time, means second time, third time, fourth time around the circle, I will be drawing the double X tiles from this bag. And the double X tiles require that this be placed on and cover 2 spaces on my board of either this color or this color. No mixing. It's got to be 2 blues or 2 oranges, for example, in this case, or 2 reds. So I'm going to continue doing that until we've played 14 turns and I have not used all of my bottles, or if I play well, I have used all of my bottles before the end of the game. The only other thing you need to know, and this will become more apparent and more easily understood as I play, but as I place bottles onto these locations, those locations are effectively removed from their area. So I can realistically only use each of these spaces with a spot once per game. And they will, if I'm not careful, cut off sort of in the middle of colored areas, but you'll see how that plays as I get into things. Remembering I'm focused on red and purple, but currently I don't have any red scoring ability. I don't want to move super far. I also know that if I take things like this, that bottle will come with me, which means that space is already destroyed and doesn't work for me. And I think what I want to do is, remembering, I don't want to go around this many times because that means I'm covering up lots of spaces, but at the same time, because there is a hard time limit of 14 rounds, I shouldn't sort of be dilly-dallying to avoid placing those X's because I should be trying to get as much stuff out onto my board that is scoreable. And I think I'm going to start by going all the way to here because that will allow me to connect this to purple, but then will also allow me to build this nice light blue section if I can get a light blue objective later on. So reaching into the bag, pulling out another X tile, sorry, another tableau tile or ink tile. Next is the AI's turn. They see a light blue, this time objective, which means they will come to the same location I'm in, placing that there, ruining that 4, which would have been nice for me over here. But so be it. All right, then I want to boost purple or grow purple. I also want to focus on reds. And I think I can kind of do that by coming here, adding that purple. I'm thinking that because later on, if I can get this blue, I can potentially connect that blue to here, but also connect this red to here, which would be good for me. Yeah, let's see if we can get that done. Placing out here, another tile. AI takes their next turn is a purple spot. There are no purple spots. So again, that means the AI will move to the next location and remove a tile from the game. This ink bottle also goes away. And we will replenish that with another tile like that. All right, then I am going to go here and take this one, which is a shame because I could put that there, but I don't like that. Instead, I'm going to do this because it connects this red here, and it also potentially starts building towards this dark blue area. That is a red. That is 1, 2, 3. Does match the 3. Red does come from this, so I will place one bottle face down on the 3 and one bottle face up on that circle like that, replacing that tile. All right, next up, purple scoring from where it is. Now, it's worth mentioning, it's not going to happen right now because the AI is going to go there, but the AI does nothing special when it passes this X location. It doesn't affect them in any way. But anyway, they're going there, and they're placing that right there on that 7 like that. All right, my turn. I absolutely need to go around that circle. I really need more purple stuff to fill in stuff. But I don't like any of these things. I could do, I kind of like this. So I have to go here and stop here and flip that first, which is a purple, which makes me sad because the only purples I've got are this area that I'm already working on down here, or this area that I'm working on up here, which does get rid of that thing. Now I'm going to get rid of that spot because I do want this to potentially still connect to that 6. But that does mean I'm going to keep coming here and take that as planned. And I'm going to do this because I'm kind of hoping I can connect in here to that 5. Placing out a new one like that. They are looking for an X spot, which is here, sorry, a dark blue spot, which means here, like that. I don't love my options here. I do not love my options. This tile is cool, except that the purple and the tan are opposite each other. So there's no easy way for me to connect into things. Yeah, I don't love them. I need more scoring stuff, and there isn't any. Yeah, I'm going to take this anyway, but where am I going to put it? I could do that and make that 4 be a thing, but then the only thing I can do after that is get a 7 to remove that ink bottle. And then I'll never score the 3 because you can only score the area on the same turn that you've added to an area. So if I put that there, that doesn't really help me in any way. So I think, there's no way for that to connect to anything. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And I realize I should have scored this 3 a long time ago, and I didn't, so it's too late to do so now. So, if I go one further, yeah, I'm just going to do that. It's sad, but I'm just going to do that. No. That. No. Changing my mind, moving one further, taking that one, just so I can do that. Because now I do score 4. And that's not red or purple, so it's got to come from here. That 4 goes there. That covers that, which is going to be a problem. No, I can't do that. That's going to mess things up. Hold off. We'll wait a minute. And you'll see why in just a second. Placing a new tile out. They take their turn. Another dark X, valued this time, means they come over here like that. Which is a big bummer because that's exactly the tile I was looking to take next turn. I'm still going to do it. So I got to stop there and take an X tile. Which is going to be purple or light blue. And I don't want to kill my purples, so I am going to kill a double light blue over here, which is a shame, but it's not the end of the world. And then I will stop there and take that tile. And I will place it like this. Because that lets me do two things. First, I score this 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 6 if I want to. So I will place this 5 and this spot are filled. Triggering a 5 means I get to place a colored square of my choice, which means it's not the best idea, but I can do that. But hold on. Let me double check something. Yeah, I like that. According to the rules, it says I can score an objective if I've increased the size of an area. So by adding that, I'm saying that I'm increasing the size of that area, which means a couple of things. Let's keep going. First things first, this 4 can be placed like that because there is a size 4 cream, which lets me change the number of any objective if I want to. I don't think I want to. But since we added to this area, that 4 can also be scored on, which means I could change the value of another objective. Again, I don't think I want to. And then I can also score this 3 like that. Whoops. Like that. And that is my turn replacing the tile that I took. Like that. Their turn. They're looking for a light blue dot, which will be this one right here, like that. I don't have a whole lot of scoring option. I don't have a whole lot of spots out. All of this makes me a little bit sad. All of this makes me just a tad bit sad. And I think I don't love it. But I think I'm gonna take this tile. And I think I'm gonna place this tile like that. It doesn't connect to 4 yet. It's only 3, because this is dead. But I have some ideas about what's possible. So let's keep going. That comes out. They take a turn. Red X means scoring red. There isn't any. So they are coming here and they're removing that tile, which could be a good thing for me if something really nice comes out. We've got this guy here. Not what I was hoping for in any kind of way. And then, I wouldn't mind this tile to hopefully get this 6 done, but it doesn't connect to anything. And that red and that cream are no good. I think I'd rather come here and take this because I can add to both this purple and this cream, and now I do have 1, 2, 3, 4 cream. So 2 of these go out. 1, 2, and I can change the value of something. I think I might have to. Let's do this 6 to a 5 just because it'll make it easier in the future if I get there. Placing out another tile. Ooh. That's the one, but I gotta go all the way around to get it. All right, their turn. Cream dot. There are no cream dots, which is a shame because that's gonna destroy that really nice tile. Like that. Not great. I think what I gotta do is I gotta stop there. Taking another X. Let's hope for light blue. That would be not bad. Dark blue or purple? Well, let's kill this dark blue over here. like that. And I am going to stop here and take this tile, because if I place that there in the middle, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 purple, which means I can place out 3 bottles because this goes there, this goes here, this goes here, and now I get to place a colored tile of my choice, which is not great right now. Got a lot of light blues, but no light blue that scores on anything. I could put a dark blue there to hopefully expand even more. Yeah, let's do that. I'll put that there. Like that. Replacing the tile. Their next turn is a yellow scoring, which will be that 3 right there, unfortunately. But not super unfortunately, because I will slide around to this one right here and place that there, which will let me place 2 more of these, one of them on this 5 and one of them like that, which is gonna let me change a color of some kind. Not great. Not great. Yeah, I don't think I'm changing any colors. No. But this is looking bad. All right, no, I'm not using that power. Another tile goes out, which is this one right here. AI's turn. They're looking for an X dot, which is that one there. I don't care about this. Do I? Do I? Not really. I definitely don't care about that. So we're gonna take an X, which is gonna be a red and a purple. Not ideal, can't be red because I don't have any, so it's gotta be this purple. And I am gonna take this one even though they're on it, because if I put that there, I can place a 5, a spot, and a spot. I still have 6 more bottles to put out, potentially red or purple. If I could get lots of purple, more realistically, there's lots of red if I can get a way to do it. But I don't see a way to do it currently. Let's see what's going on. Tile. There's some purple though. There's some purple though. Yeah, but I gotta go all the way around to get that. I don't think it's happening. I got 3 more turns. They're looking for a dark blue scoring tile. Is that one? I'm in trouble. There's no red scoring at all. Dark blue's no good for me. Hold on a minute. Before I did that, I did just score a 5. I should have placed out a something. And I think it's gotta be a purple. Which means I've got 3 more turns. 1, 2, yeah. 1 to take that one. Yeah, but that'll instantly end. Like that. Don't like it. I don't like it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's just a 6. Okay, his turn. Light blue dot is there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, I come here and take a 7 like that. Yeah, I'm gonna get close, but I don't think I've got this. That goes there. He takes his final turn, which is a red scoring. There aren't any, which means he's taking that tile away. which is not the end of the world. One more tile goes out, which is that one right there. We may get lucky, but I don't think so. All right, so we go here. I draw an X, and it better not be purple. Red or yellow would be great. Red or cream. Light blue or light purple? Ah, perfect. There's a light blue over here that I don't care about. Because I'm going to take this tile, and I'm going to put it there. Yeah. Hold on. Yeah, that connects. Because then, this 7 scores, which gets me this one and this one. Ah, no, that light blue can't score. The 7 says, remove 2 ink bottles from 2 different colored areas. So that's one. I wish I could take that away, but I can't. But I can remove that one. Then I score 4. But that's a problem because then I can't score that 4. And scoring 4 lets me decrease a value, but there is no 3. These are only 4, 5, 6, and 7. Hold on, is there any way that that could have been spent? Yes. If we did it that way, 7 would have done that and that. And then I removed that. And then that. No, it still won't work. Because that splits those 2. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I can't score that. I can't score that. That is the end of the game. I unfortunately still have 2 bottles left. Close, but unfortunately the bonus actions didn't work out for me as well as I would hope for them to have done this time. Yeah, nope. Nope, nope, nope. Because that's just 1, 2, 3. That's a no-go. Wait a minute. Let me undo something. That was there. And these 3 bottles were there. 4 bottles. Let me see. If I do a 4 first. Am I required to play in those spots? Let me double check that. Yeah, it says as many as possible, so that's not going to work either. Because the best I can do is make that a 4. I thought maybe if I made that a 6 and scored it, I could move this over here, which would connect the blue and the thing, but then that 7 didn't do what it did, so yeah, no. Okay, so that came. Whoops, 2 of those should have been removed. That is the best that I could have done, so we do finish, unfortunately, with a loss with 2 bottles left, but we got really close, and this game is very difficult. That is the end of the game. At this point, I do like to take a look at the components. You've basically seen all of the components that there are in this game. I love the way that this game looks, this sort of tableau of inky spaces expanding across the table with these bottles face up and face down across there. Looks really cool. I do really love the bottles here. I'll try and show them to you up close. You got a little eye for ink on the top. Translucent colors. The black ones are super black and inky. I'm not going to take them out of the bags just because it's going to be a pain in the butt, but here are the 3 other colors, a red, orange, and sort of a light turquoise blue. Really nice colors. There are a lot more different of these bonus actions, allowing you to move things around, take things off the board. There's a bonus action that lets you put a free white spot on any space in your tableau. There's one that lets you take a tile from the wheel and reserve it for a future turn, so you can play 2 tiles on a future turn. And another one that lets you draw a tile from the bag and play it immediately into your tableau. But again, otherwise, everything you see on the screen is everything in this game. All of the component quality is super nice, thick, sort of punch board. Again, the ink bottles are really cute, really cool colors. I love the translucency on the colored ones and the dark inky black of these black ink bottles. Really, really nice stuff. Love the way the game looks. These bags, this ink bag with this sort of indigo dye at the bottom, really, really beautiful design. Nice heavy canvas bag. Again, this nice indigo colored X bag as well. Really nice drawstrings, super high quality bags. Really, really happy with that. One more nice thing, because of the sort of potential problems with the translucent bottles and color blindness, they also provide you with these 4 different colored tokens to be played with as the sort of tracker on this wheel if necessary. So one of these would get placed onto the wheel and the other one would get placed in front of a player so you can see whose color is who. It doesn't matter what the color actually is because there's 2 of them, so you can compare the colors. I thought that was a cool sort of inclusion in this game. It would have been nice to have symbols on them as well, just to make it an extra step of differentiation. But it was interesting to see that they included special components that were only used for colorblind players, which I appreciate. Even though myself, I have no difficulty seeing colors, at least as far as I know. The insert for this game is not really an insert, it is sort of one of those cardboard troughs. I do like that it's sort of decorated, it looks very pretty, but if I want to keep all of these tiles in this bag, it kind of makes it difficult to fit everything in the box and put a lid on. So for right now it's still in there, but it's very likely it won't last in this box for very long. But that's a little bit sad because the inside of the box is unfinished otherwise. But it is what it is, and I can't expect that every game's going to have a fancy insert, especially when so much love has been put into all of the components. But at the same time, because so much love has been put into the components, and they did add some art to that sort of insert cardboard piece, I would have loved to have seen just that art on the inside of the box to give myself a little bit more space to fit things into the box. But that's basically all I have to say about the components. Meet me back up top and I'll let you know what I think about the game itself. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the playthrough. So here we go. This is a tile-laying spatial puzzler game that at first glance seems quite a bit like many games that are out there on the market, where on your turn you're drafting tiles, placing tiles so that different parts of tiles line up in order to sort of make groupings of certain colors, almost like Dwarf Romantic, in which you're trying to match sort of a number with the number of spaces of a specific type, or in this case, specific color, in order to sort of score that space. And in this game, on those spaces, in addition to that space that has the number that is sort of the challenge you're hoping to accomplish by putting those tiles together, some of the spaces also have sort of empty or blank spots on them. And what that means is when you score that area, you are going to place one of your tokens, your ink bottles, onto that challenge, that valued space. But then you'll also fill in any other of those blank spots that happen to be in that same section. So you're trying to grow sections of color, placing your bottles on there and then filling in those spots, trying to get your bottles out as fast as possible. Because ultimately this is a race game, and you are trying to get rid of all of your bottles as fast as possible. And this is sort of the first and big unique twist that makes this game feel quite a bit different than many of these sort of tile-laying spatial puzzle, sort of build areas of a specific type kinds of games. Now, one small twist here as well is as you're laying these tiles out, these tiles can be placed sort of off-centered because each of these tiles has 4 squares on it. So you can line them up so that sort of the bottom corner of one touches the top corner of the other. Now you can't place them diagonally. You do have to place them adjacent, but you do have a little bit of flexibility because of sort of each side having that sort of double piece on it. Also, there's no restriction about matching colors. You're just hoping to match colors. So you can place the tile anywhere you'd like to so long as it is adjacent to another tile. But another piece of that small twist is that in this game, the tiles are big chunky tiles, and because of this sort of offset nature of them, or the potential offset nature of them, there is no ability to overlay tiles. So you can never cover up, at least not with normal placement, you can never cover up tiles that have already been placed. So you're trying your best to make as many sort of groupings of the same color as possible. so that you can have enough of a single color matching a valued space connected to that same piece of color in order to score it, while also hopefully having as many open empty spots on there as possible when you score it, so that you can place as many bottles as you can at the same time. Because again, remember, ultimately this game is a race. So that is sort of the core game of this game, and that would be fun on its own. But there's sort of several more levels of things that are going on as you're placing. First off, every time you place a bottle on a space, you've effectively removed that space from the game, because that bottle is now covering that space, and that no longer counts as a space of that color. Which means if you do have a space that has lots of those empty spots, as soon as you place all those bottles out into that space, all of those things go away. Meaning that space has now dramatically shrunk and potentially cut into several pieces, because if those bottles are placed in the center of that space, you've now segmented that space into multiple pieces. So if you manage to keep a large enough sort of section of that color, you could potentially connect in later on, or even in the same turn, multiple spaces or sort of multiple valued scoring challenge spaces of that color to that same section, continuing to score more and more points off of, or place more and more bottles off of that one colored section. But again, remembering that every time you place a bottle, you're shrinking or splitting that section, which makes this more and more difficult to do. In addition, another mechanism that this game has, and does add quite an interesting twist to the game as well, is that this game has a rondel, which is a round board that you're moving your piece around. And this is how the tile drafting is going to work. So on your turn, you're going to move your ink bottle on that rondel to a space of your choosing, or to a space that has a tile that you would like to draft to place into your personal tableau. And you're going to do that by moving around this rondel, and every time you make a complete loop, means every time you pass the center space at the top of that rondel, you are then sort of penalized by needing to place this sort of X token. And at the beginning of the game, it's going to have a single X, and later on in the game, it will have two sets of double X's. And what that means is that X will dictate a colored space or a pair of colored spaces on your tableau that need to be covered by that X token, because it will be a sort of 2x1 rectangle that gets overlaid onto your tableau, basically removing two squares of something from your tableau, making it harder then to build these larger sections, to score these larger sections, or to place bottles out in these larger sections. So you kind of always have to make sure you're working, that you have some sort of leftover stuff that's sort of not going to bother the thing you're actually currently working on, hoping to score later on. So this sort of addition of this rondel that sort of makes me move to draft the next piece, and occasionally is going to punish me by covering up specific sets or semi-specifics, because it'll give you a type of thing to cover and you have a choice of where that goes. The single X meaning I have to have at least one of those colors covered, whereas the double X means I have to have two spaces of a single color of two choices covered on my tableau. So what this means is I might slowly move around this rondel, picking up tiles that are less than optimal for me, just so that I don't have to cover up any spaces on my board. But if I see a really sort of juicy tile that I really want to have, well, maybe it's worth taking the risk of covering something in order to get that tile, to make sure that I can place out a ton of bottles on a turn. So this balance of drafting tiles that match what you need, but also paying attention to the sort of timer and avoiding covering stuff as much as possible, placing tiles down so that the colors match where they need to sort of match these challenge values as you go, but then also placing tiles so that you don't cut off or shrink things in ways that you can't add on to them later on, placing tiles so that you do have some sort of dead zones that you don't mind covering up with these X tiles as you collect them. All of this adds to this sort of generic spatial puzzle tile laying game in really unique ways that I've never seen before, and then adding in this race element that is not about scoring, it's about racing to get rid of all of your bottles, which adds in two more twists that I should talk about. One of them is that you start with what's called a palette card at the start of every game, which gives you sort of two colors that you're focused on. And half of your bottles will be placed on that palette card, which means that half of your bottles can only be placed on sections of color matching the two colors on that card. which then sort of restricts your motion in even more small, sort of tighter ways, because now it's not just about building these spaces to match the scoring conditions that I see around the rondelle or on the tiles around the rondelle. Now it's about looking for specific colors, so that even when I'm scoring things that aren't those specific colors, using those bottles that aren't on my palette card, I'm also hopefully building out areas of the colors I need, so that when one of those valued spots shows up on the rondelle, I can make sure to draft it, connect it into something that I've already been sort of developing, and then place out a bunch of bottles at the same time. The other piece of this is that there are different sized values, sort of challenge values on those tiles. 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And in a lot of other games, placing out a bigger value or scoring a bigger value like that 6 or that 7 would mean that it's gaining you more points. It's doing something better for you. But in this case, because it's a race game, that's not necessarily true. Because you can trigger one of these values if there are more spaces than that value as well. So I could have a ton of empty white spots and score a 3 and place out a ton of bottles, because only one bottle goes on that value. All of the other bottles go on these empty white spots. So again, a small valued spot could still place out a ton of bottles, and vice versa. If I place out a 6 that's all colored tiles that have none of these white spots, I'm only going to place out a single bottle. So wasting all of that time to build out an area of 6 spaces matching that color is kind of useless in that situation, because I'm still only placing out one bottle. So it really sort of twists things in your brain that big numbers don't always do big things for you. Sometimes it's worth getting those smaller numbers and placing multiple small numbers on the same group of colors, so that you can score lots of times or place many times, thereby getting rid of as many bottles as possible, quickly as possible. Except then there's one further and final twist, is that every time you play this game, there are bonus abilities or bonus actions associated with the 4, 5, 6, and 7 value challenge scoring. And what that means is each of those numbers is going to get some kind of power that might allow me to pull bottles off of my board, removing it from the game so that I can rescore things that have already been scored, allowing me to move tiles from one place to another, so that maybe I score this piece of a tile, then slide it over to this side and score this piece on a different patch of color. Allow me to place out tiles that change a color into a different color. Allow me to place out numbers that change a challenge value into a different challenge value, allowing me to score it more quickly or more easily. So these bonus actions are what's going to sort of help me build into this sort of efficiency puzzle to place those bottles out as fast as I possibly can. But this is where the 4, 5, 6, 7 really does matter, because these bonus actions will always be placed out in sort of a numerical order, increasing from top to bottom, which means those bonus actions with higher values will always have slightly more powerful abilities. So by hitting a 6 or a 7 challenge value and scoring on that, even if I only get to place out a single bottle or two because of the way that I've placed my tiles, it does mean that I'm triggering a more powerful ability that should probably help me better in some way than if I had just scored that 4 or that 5. And that's not always true, but it does sort of add to that puzzle of which challenge values I should be aiming for, not just because the space is bigger and could potentially contain more of those empty spaces, but also because probably the bonus action associated with that number is probably better as well. So putting all of this together really makes for a very interesting twist on what is a fairly straightforward spatial puzzle kind of game. But then there's the solo mode. Let's talk about the solo mode. So a solo mode in a tile laying game is tricky because the solo AI opponent can't really draft tiles on their own in any kind of meaningful way, and they don't try to do that here. As this is a race game, basically all they've done here with the AI is turn on a timer, basically. And every turn, the AI is going to flip over a tile that's going to place out a bottle onto a tile on the rondelle, assuming that there's one that matches the tile that's been turned over. And basically what that means is the AI is going to be sort of eating up some of those empty spaces and some of those challenge value spaces on the tiles that are available to you, preventing you from using them for what you need to use them for. But also it means that if the AI doesn't have something that matches what they're looking for, they're going to remove tiles. So they could even be pulling out tiles that you're hoping to get by getting to them before you have a chance to get to them. So the AI is giving you a timer because the number of AI turns is how many turns you have to put out all your bottles, and if you don't, then you lose the game. But also they're messing with you by potentially stealing things that you might be wanting to use in your tableau, which makes it somewhat like the the multiplayer experience, because in that experience, your opponents would be rushing you and pushing you to get things done faster and would be taking things away from you that you need to get done. The difference here is that if you and your opponent in a multiplayer game are slow, the game can go on longer, allowing you to expand and giving you more opportunity and more possibility to end up using all your bottles. Whereas in the solo mode, the AI is a hard end at 14 or fewer rounds when you play solo. And because of that, this game, for me so far, has been really, really hard. I've played this a handful of times and I've only managed to win one time on the easiest difficulty using the 14 tiles. And I say difficulty just means how many rounds is the AI going to play before the hard end of the game. 14 being the easiest mode, shrinking down, I can't remember what the smallest is, but probably about half of that. I've only ever won, and I've only ever won in the final round of that 14 thing. So I've only managed to score a single win on the easiest difficulty of this game. Does that mean I'm not good at this game? Possibly. Does that mean this AI maybe tuned a little bit too hard? Possibly. Does that mean I hate this game because it's too hard and I'll never win? No, not at all. So I'm really enjoying everything here. The puzzle here is really, really cool. I tend to be a fan of tile-laying spatial puzzle games, and this one is doing it in a very nice, unique, and interesting way, throwing in this race element. It does feel a little bit punishing, and it does definitely feel random, because if the right tiles come out for you, you're going to do well, and if the right tiles don't come out for you, you're not going to do well, and the AI is only covering things randomly, so if the AI hurts you by hitting the wrong thing at the wrong time, it's going to hurt you, and if they don't, then you'll do well. Yes, there's a lot of randomness in the solo game. In the multiplayer game, less so, because while you will all have slightly different colors that you're trying to score on based on your palette card, you will still be competing with a thinking human being that will be drafting things to prevent you from getting them, but also drafting things that might be the things you need in some way, and there's a lot more sort of smartness to the way that things are happening. So that randomness should disappear in a multiplayer game, but in the solo game, there is quite a bit of randomness because of how the tiles come out, because of how the X tiles come out, because of how the AI randomly sort of removes things or covers things along the way. But again, does it bother me? No. It does mean sometimes the game will be easier, sometimes the game will be harder, but it's still a fun puzzle for me to play with. And rather than using those difficulty levels as sort of a way to start the game by placing out 14 tiles or 13 tiles or 12 tiles, instead I think the better way to play this game is to use that as a sort of score system and just play to see if you can get all your stuff done. And when you get all of your bottles out, see how many tiles are left for the AI and give yourself sort of a score based on that. Use that 14 as the hard threshold of win or lose, and then your score beyond that is how many tiles are left when you finish playing the game or when you finish placing out all your bottles. I think that's maybe the better way to do it. Again, I do really enjoy this solo mode. There is quite a bit of randomness in the solo. It might bother you if that kind of thing is bothering to you. That would disappear in the multiplayer game. Do I recommend this for only solo? Maybe. It's definitely not a solo first game, but it is a whole lot of fun playing solo. Do I recommend this game as a multiplayer game for people who would play it solo and multiplayer? Absolutely yes. If you're a fan of tile-laying, spatial puzzle kinds of games, if you're looking for a sort of competitive version of that Dorfromantik tile-laying system with a rondel and cool bonus abilities and so on thrown in on top of that, absolutely, definitely check this one out. It is a lot of fun, and it definitely does some new things with tile-laying that I haven't seen before. So that's basically all I have to say about this game. As always, I hope that this video was helpful for you, and if it was, I do ask that you remember to like, subscribe, and click the bell icon below, and I'll see you all next time. Thanks.